Hey everybody, Lori Lowe here, and welcome to the Sacred Binge. This is the channel in which we share the experience of having binge eating disorder. Our goal is to understand that there's nothing wrong with our food, there's nothing wrong with our size. The only thing wrong with us is that we think there's something wrong with us. So, with that note, I'm going to continue what I had started with last week, and that is reading my new book, Mouth Hunger, the 10 Healing Truths about Binge Eating Disorder that will mend your heart and set you free. So we left off, we were just about to start chapter 3, which is where we start getting into the 10 healing truths that I've learned about when I learned to explore binge eating disorder as something that happened to me rather than something that defined me. My whole life started to change around my relationship with food and my weight. So we're going to jump right back in and continue reading, and I'm hoping you'll enjoy this. Whoops. We're going to continue reading as soon as I put my glasses on. Okay. Chapter 3, healing truth number 1. You have a disorder, not a character flaw. One of the most helpful realizations I made when I began to face my binge eating disorder head on was that while I have it, I do not have to be defined by it. It offers no measurement of my value or worth. It simply describes something that happened to me. Now, I am not a doctor, a neuroscientist, or any other kind of medical professional. So what I'm about to share is strictly what I've learned during my research on BED. No one is born with a binge eating disorder, or any other use disorder for that matter, yet disordered use of a substance or a behavior can happen to any human being. The mechanisms to develop binge eating disorders start when our brain learns that certain foods or ingredients in foods cause artificially high feelings of pleasure and a related release of dopamine. Dopamine teaches our brain to associate this pleasure and the activity that created it, eating the food, as good. We want to eat more of the food we favor because our brain begins creating nerve pathways or neuropathways that specifically make this food important to our feeling of safety and well-being. As we pursue this sense of safety by eating more of this food, the neuropathways associated with the substance or behavior become deeply active, and our brain habitually defaults to these same nerve bundles again and again. We experience this as craving, both physical and emotional. And in the case of binge eating disorder, it's what I've come to call mouth hunger. An intense need to compulsively overeat to feel comforted and safe. Keep in mind that mouth hunger is experienced in a radically different way than body hunger, which I will get more into deeply in Healing Truth number 2. My point is that when mouth hunger is not answered with our preferred binge food, our brain doesn't reward us with a sense of safety and well-being, which causes a cascade of anxiety, emotional discomfort, and fixation on eating compulsively. In cases of severe food use disorder, we may feel so unsafe when our binge food is withheld that it's as if our very lives are threatened. Sound familiar? Healing truth number 1 is that when we educate ourselves and own that we have a disorder and are not just gluttonous fatties with no self-control, we can observe our mouth hunger with curiosity instead of contempt. In other words, you are not weak-willed, lazy, or otherwise broken. You just have comfort-seeking neural pathways in your brain that are as deep as the Grand Canyon. And it's okay to look at this reality with compassion and sympathy for yourself. It would, however, be very understandable if you did consider your disordered eating to be a flaw in your character. Very many of us are taught to value what people think about us more than what we believe about ourselves. And we're particularly vulnerable to this misconception if we are overweight to any degree. Being fat in our culture is equated with all kinds of moral failings, from a lack of self-control to being stupid, lazy, physically unattractive or desirable, unhealthy, and generally at fault for any difficulty that might cross our paths. All of that chatter is just cultural fat bias with no basis in science or any other empirical measurement. But it is pervasive, and it can be hard to untangle our own self-worth from what others think it should be. Actually, it's incredibly hard. Just look at all the bikini shots influencers and celebrities slap all over social media. Understanding that BED starts as a biochemical activity instead of a moral failing, however, is the first healing truth that I can offer you in this book. It is not your fault. Chapter 4. Healing truth number 2. Dieting is not the cure, it's one of the causes. Binge eating disorder was only recognized as separate and distinctive disorder, one that a medical professional could actually diagnose and deliver treatments for, in 2013. It's estimated that as many as 9 million Americans show symptoms that would lead to a BED diagnosis, and that up to 40% of the people in the United States who seek weight loss solutions fall into this category. There are several criteria identified in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders used to define binge eating disorder. I encourage you to review the entire list for yourself. You can Google it, you can find it on Wikipedia. But there are 3 criteria I particularly want to discuss here. 1. Eating when not experiencing body hunger. I mentioned in the last section that mouth hunger is something different than body hunger. With practice, I've learned to recognize mouth hunger as a physical yearning sensation around my mouth and in my throat, accompanied by an intense emotional desire to binge on sugary foods. I must eat this now or I will die. Body hunger, on the other hand, I experience as an urgency in my abdomen and torso, accompanied by a mental reminder to replace energy stores. Oh, it's time to eat. You may experience these hungers differently, but my point is that mouth hunger is a phenomenon of disordered eating, while body hunger is part of a normal body-driven relationship to food. Number 2, eating in secret, hiding food, and feeling deep shame for the behavior. So, true story, I chose to live alone most of my adult life so I could binge in secret, denying myself companionship and community. I was too ashamed of my secret behavior, what I ate, how much I ate, and because I was unable to resist stealing my favorite foods from roommates. So instead, I chose to live alone. 3, attempting to treat the symptom of weight gain through repeated and failed attempts to diet. Many of us with BED look at our bodies as the villain and weight as the biggest problem in our life. The reason we are unhappy and why we aren't worthy of love, respect, and care. And so we diet endlessly until we get it right. If you don't believe me, go back to the 50-year diet section of this book. The irony of healing truth number 2 is that our pursuit of self-esteem through dieting and weight loss is one of the causes of BED. Let me say that again. Pursuit of weight loss and dieting causes binge eating disorder. We become compulsive overeaters because our brains found a sense of safety and well-being from certain foods. When we go on a diet without understanding how the disorder works on our brain, we cause the very thing we want to avoid: irresistible mouth hunger and binge eating. Binging and restricting are two sides of the same disorder. If you are one of the 40% of Americans that are seeking to lose weight as a cure for BED, stop right now. Just stop trying to lose weight. I mean it. Stop it. Because dieting is not the way out of your disorder. It pulls you deeper inside of it. Any lasting relief can only come by learning new ways to create a sense of safety, love, worthiness, value, and well-being, regardless of how much we weigh, how we fill out a bathing suit, or the cultural lie that our salvation comes with thinness. Stop dieting. Stop trying to restrict. Stop trying to lose weight right now. And you will already have neutralized 1/2 of your binge eating disorder. Chapter 5, Healing Truth number 3. The processed food industry keeps your eating disordered. When I began researching my eating disorder, I learned some things about the processed food industry that made me very angry. Most people agree that we are the unhealthiest, most food-addicted population in history. I won't even go into the details of the various metabolic diseases, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, liver disease, cancer, stroke, associated with the Western lifestyle, because there's a lot of good research and data out there on those conditions. There isn't, however, a lot of good data on what causes these metabolic disorders. Now, if you read the news, watch TV, browse social media, or speak to almost any healthcare professional, the prevailing belief is that being overweight is a primary culprit. Dig deeper, however, and you will see something different. According to Linda Bacon's and Lucy Aframore's great book, Body Respect, there are several other factors that are more predictive of overall health than our weight. Fitness level, economic status, genetic factors, and most particularly reduced social status and the related feelings of being marginalized, discriminated against, and unable to make a meaningful impact in our own lives. All of these things are better indicators of developing a metabolic disorder than having a so-called unhealthy weight. So if being overweight doesn't lead to all of our bad health, what does? Let me put it this way. I once met a chemical engineer who worked for a well-known commercial food manufacturer on a particular brand of macaroni and cheese. She described the process of explicitly engineering processed foods for mouthfeel, taste, and addictive response. Part of becoming curious about your binge eating disorder is rejecting what you have taken as gospel about why you are hooked on certain foods and why you may be overweight. Healing truth number 3 is understanding the reality that you are living in an industrialized food economy that is very interested in having you continue with behaviors that keep you binge eating, metabolically compromised, and sick. Furthermore, they are very invested in making the world believe that you are to blame. Can you imagine anyone approaching a person with a severe metabolic disorder and saying, hey, too bad you can't just eat healthy? Yet because binge eaters are often overweight, we are regularly smacked with the fat and lazy stick on social media, by family and friends, and by the medical industry, even though weight gain is not a moral failing. Put the blame where it belongs. a processed food industry that, at the heart of its business model, designs products that increase your desire to consume more of them. They rig the game in their favor, increase the odds that your pleasure centers will be artificially activated, and then blame you for overeating their products. Let me be clear. You can eat anything you want. I just want you to know that engineered foods are designed to stimulate those pleasure-sensitive neural pathways we discussed in Healing Truth number 1. And ultra-processed foods could be considered a triggering factor in developing BED. Again, don't go on a diet. There is very good research that indicates that the quantity of the food is not the cause. Rather, the quality of the food is the cause when it comes to the increase in rates of metabolic disorders, including, coincidentally, obesity in several parts of the world. Use this information compassionately. Lean into educating yourself about your disorder and feed yourself well. Chapter 6. Healing Truth number 4, commercial weight loss programs expect you to fail. You can see why the information about processed food manufacturers makes me angry, but it's even more maddening when you consider the weight loss industry as the other side of the industrial food complex. Together, they push an impossible dream: eat more highly addictive processed food, but way less. Some commercial diets will even deliver ultra-processed and packaged weight loss meals right to your door. Commercial diet programs sell the fantasy of thinness and how happy we will become when we lose weight. They use testimonials and pictures of successful dieters sharing how much weight they've lost and how it's given them their life back. I'm happy for them. I was one of them several times. Healing Truth number 4 is that commercial diet programs not only expect you to fail using their products, the long-term success rates are only about 3%. They actually expect you to be a return customer, and it's built into the industry's business model. Psychologically, their marketers design messages that encourage us to believe that this time it will work, even when they know it won't. By the millions, people return to purchase commercial diet programs, lose weight temporarily, and then gain it back again as many times as the industry can persuade you it's worth it. They monetize the binging and restricting cycle that keeps us hooked. If any other product only delivered a 3% success rate, the manufacturer would have been bankrupt years ago. But the weight loss industry is rolling along with an estimated $61 billion a year in revenues. Many researchers speculate the continued allure of weight loss is driven by a fat-biased social and medical culture and media that believes that absolutely anything is better than being overweight. We discussed previously that dieting is the other side of the binge restrict cycle, and that pursuing physical beauty does not guarantee well-being, a sense of purpose and value, or make anyone love you. I also know from deep personal experience that intentionally trying to lose weight with a diet activates binge eating disorder. Yet the commercial weight loss industry still asks you to buy their program and ignore what is really going on. They maintain that your difficulty is with extra weight, and then they offer you a BED activating way to deal with it, a diet. I did warn you that some of this stuff is truly ass backwards. While a few commercial weight loss programs of late have become more aware of the emotional and physiological effects of a disordered eating and are including information on how to manage a weight loss journey from that perspective, most remain so focused on selling thinness and with such faulty logic that it's laughable. hey, you know that thing we want you to buy from us that doesn't really work, but we want you to believe it really does work. So if it doesn't work, it's your fault. Let's do it again. I was tinkering around with this recently and came up with a more truthful twist on a typical sales pitch for a commercial weight loss program. Worried about those holiday pounds? Let's finally wrestle that pesky binge eating disorder to the ground in time for bikini season. Oh, kidding aside, I want to remind you of healing truth number 2 and say that any restriction for the purpose of weight loss when dealing with BED is going to ultimately increase emotional pain and suffering. I understand how deeply you long for all the benefits of that commercial weight loss programs offer, but be clear that it is an industry largely trading on fat bias and using faulty science that plays upon your emotional traumas and culturally driven shame to benefit their bottom line. My guess is you've had enough of this already. But please rest assured, if you shut down these false messages and do the work to really own and understand your binge eating disorder, you can and will find your authentically fulfilling life. You don't have to give up on your natural desire to be a healthy weight because you're stuck with a binge eating disorder. What I'm asking is that when it comes to the miracle messages surrounding any kind of diet programs, that you separate the fantasy of weight loss from the reality of what you've already experienced as you've gone through all of these yo-yo diets. It does not deliver. I believe that everyone, including those of us with BED, are deserving of a healthy body that feels attractive and increases our feelings of value and self-worth. And that digging deeply into why we have binge eating disorder is the thing we can do today that will actually get us there. Okay, so we are not quite about halfway through Mouth Hunger here. I'm trying to get the glare off the page. I'm really excited to share this with you guys. You know, I'm having such terrific commentary and feedback, and I'm talking to so many more interesting people because I just started this journey of saying, hey, I have binge eating disorder, and I think it requires more than a diet to address it. So I hope you enjoyed this. By all means, you can pick up the book on Amazon as an ebook or a paperback. And we're going to have some more of this a little bit later. In the meantime, please subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, hit the bell to get notifications of new posts, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.